Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about graphing inequalities, and we're going to talk about all different kinds of inequalities. We're going to talk about what they are, how to draw them, how to graph them, all of that great stuff. So we're going to be looking at a bunch of different things about inequalities today. Now, you do have a note sheet that goes along with this. Anything you see on this video, you should be filling into your note sheet. They all match, and so make sure you're following along. So, first things first, we need to talk about what is an inequality. An inequality is just an equation that is not equal. Okay, so we've been doing equations. We've been doing one-step equations. We've been two-step equations. All these things are the same exact thing, only instead of an equal sign, it's going to have a different sign. And we're about to talk about what those signs are. So here are our inequality words and symbols. So I'm going to give you a word, I'm going to tell you what it means, and then we're going to talk about how to draw it. So we're going to do one for each of these four words, and make sure you're filling this into your notes as we go. So, greater than. We've talked about this before. You've heard the word greater than, but just a quick refresher, greater than means more than. And another way to say that is bigger than. Anytime you see those words, you need to know that we are talking about the greater than symbol. And a greater than symbol is always going to face towards your x or your letter, your variable. Okay? Make sure you're writing this down. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do less than. Now, it's just the opposite of greater than, so you're going to notice some similarities in their words. Instead of more than, for less than, we're going to use fewer than. Okay, so if you see the word fewer than, you need to know that you're drawing your less than symbol. Another one that we can use is smaller than. And this is going to be just the opposite. It is going to put away from our variable. Okay? So we have greater than, that's more than, it's bigger than. And we have less than, that's fewer than, or smaller than. Now, if you notice, we have greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. All I'm adding on these words are or, equal to. Okay? So you're still going to look for that more than, but it can also be equal to. So the way we word this is we can word it as at least. So he has at least as much as Sally. Okay? If you see that word at least, you know he has to be greater than, but he can also be equal to. Another one we can do is no less than. Okay? Both of those work. Now, the way we draw that, it's going to look just like a greater than symbol. So you have your mouth facing towards the variable. But because we have that or equal to, you have to draw half of that equal sign right there. So I draw a little bar under it, okay? So, and the way I remember that is it's half of an equal sign, okay? Because it's not completely equal to. It can be greater than or equal to. So I draw my greater sign, and then I draw a bar under it. And that's for that equal to part. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with less than or equal to. So it's still less than, we just added the or equal to. And so still going in that same fewer than, smaller than way, but we can say it at most. Because he can have the same as her or less, so at most. Or we can also do no more than. And same thing that we did with the greater than or less than, greater than or equal to symbol. You draw your less than sign, which is facing away from the variable, and then you're going to put a half a equals bar, because he shares his equal bar with the greater than or equal to. Okay, so here we go on to the next part. The next part we're going to talk about is how we color our circle. Because when we graph inequalities, we have to draw a circle on a number line, and we're going to talk about what those look like. Okay, so now we're going to look at how to color our circles. Now, we talked about how greater than or less than are kind of related, okay? One is bigger than, more than, and the other one is fewer than or smaller than, but they're still related. So they are going to share the same kind of circle, because when we're graphing an inequality, we have to draw a circle. And that's a crappy circle, but you know what I mean, okay? So we talked about it has to be an open circle, because you're not including that number it's sitting on. And so the greater than sign and the less than sign both share what's called an open circle. That means it's not colored in. Now, our less than or equal to or greater than or equal to is exactly opposite. Okay? You are including that number, and so you have to color in the circle because you want it to count the number it's on, so you color it in. So our colored in circle is going to get the greater than or equal to sign, the less than or equal to sign, okay? So our open circle gets the greater than or less than sign because you don't want to include the number it's sitting on. But our closed circle uses the greater than or equal to or the less than or equal to sign because that's what it counts that number that it's sitting on as well. So that dot has to be colored in because you want it touching that number that we're using. Now, just like we have to worry about whether it's an open circle or a closed circle, we also have to draw an arrow because if it's less than, it's that every number lower than. So you have to point it a certain way. If it's greater than, it's from that circle all the way over. Okay, so we have to know which way to draw our arrow. Now, if it goes to the left, I want you to write this on your paper. Left is less. And I want you to draw that L super big because left is less. So if you have a less than symbol or a less than or equal to sign, whenever you draw your circle, whether it's open or closed, you're going to point off to the left, okay? Then on our, just the opposite, on the right is, and this is going to be a funny word, greater. Okay, so the right is greater. And in the word greater, I want you to capitalize the two R's. So we have greater. And I've capitalized both of those R's because they have R's in them. So anytime you are doing either a greater than sign or a greater than or equal to sign, you're going to draw your circle, whether it's open or closed, and you're going to point an arrow off to the right. Now, after all this talking, let's actually try some. Let's put into numbers what we have been doing, okay? So, we have a dot. We have a dot, and so I'm going to go ahead and put X because I know it's going to be X and a number. But my dot is on -3. So I wrote X and I wrote -3. Now, one thing you should notice about this circle is that it is colored in. So no matter which way it's facing, I know it has to have this equal bar under it because it's colored in. Anytime you see a colored dot, you know it has to have that equals bar under it. Now, what did we say about it going to the left? Left is what? It's less, okay? So left, this is less than or equal to -3. And remember, when we do a less than sign, it's going to push away from the variable. So since the variable is less than -3, you want the mouth, the alligator mouth, facing away from your variable. So if you have one of these and it tells you to graph it, all you do is you look at your, first of all, write your variable, look at where your little dot is pointing at. That's when I wrote my -3. I draw my equal bar because it's colored in, and then I did a less than symbol because my arrow is pointing to the left. Let's try another one. So, using exactly like we just did the last one, first thing we need to do is we need to write our variable. Our variable is, I'm just going to use X. Your variable can be any letter, okay? I'm using X. Now, the next step is to look down and see what your circle is over. In this case, it's over 1. So I'm just going to write X and I'm going to write 1 because I know that's what I'm looking at. Now, since this one is open, do I need to draw my equals bar? No, good. I don't have to do that, okay? Since it's an open circle, this is just going to be a less than sign or greater than sign. There is going to be no bar. But I see that my arrow is going to the left, so that means it is less than, okay? So if it is less than 1, I know my mouth is going to have to be facing away from the variable because the 1 is the biggest. The alligator wants to eat him. However you want to remember it, left is less, and so that means the mouth is facing away from the variable. So the next one I'm going to do, I have this blank number line. And you can see them right here. We're going to fill him in. The problem we're going to do right now is we're going to say x is less than 3. So I got to make sure this 3 is somewhere on the number line, okay? So I'm going to be simple on myself. I'm going to say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to fill in your number line to make it match your problem. So what number am I going to draw my circle over? You look in your problem, and it is right here. What number is that? Good, it's 3. So I'm going to draw my circle right above 3. But am I going to color it in? No. Okay, good. I'm not going to color it in because it does not have an equal bar. That means the circle stays open. But I have a less than symbol because the mouth is facing away from the X. Since the less than symbol, that means my arrow is going to go off to the left, okay? So you draw your open circle because it does not have an equal bar, and you draw your arrow off to the left because it's less than, and less than always means left. The next one we're going to do is x is greater than or equal to -2. Okay, the number I'm using this time is -2. So I have to draw a number line that has -2 on it. I don't care if you count by 2s, if you count by 1s, whatever you do, but your -2 has to be on this number line somewhere. So I'm going to put him right here. I'm going to put -2 there, so that means to the left is getting smaller. That's -3. To the right is getting bigger, so we have -1, 0, and 1. Okay, so I have my numbers drawn on my number line. Now I'm ready to graph. What number am I putting my circle over? Remember, we always go back and look at the problem. Good. We're looking at -2, okay? So I'm going to draw my circle over -2. But look at this sign. It has an equals bar in it. Since it has the or equal to on the end, that means it's going to be colored in. So I have to color in this circle. That's as good as it's getting. And then it is greater than, okay? Remember, when we wrote greater, we capitalized the R's because we wanted to remember that greater than is to the right. So we're going to draw our arrow off to the right, and then we are done. We marked our circle where it went. We colored it in because it had the equals bar, and we pointed it off to the right because it was greater. Okay, so this time I'm going to throw a little curveball at you. Not a big curveball, just a little one. Remember how we've been doing 1- and 2-step equations in class? Okay, we're going to do that, only this time instead of an equals bar, I'm going to throw an inequality symbol in there. So, and we're going to look at what it does when we solve it, okay? So the first one I'm going to use is I'm going to say 2x plus 4 is greater than 8. Okay, so I have to solve this equation. Okay, so the way we've been doing it in class, we draw my fence, circle my best buddy or my coefficient, and now I have to get rid of the constant. I have to get rid of that random buddy. So how do I get rid of a plus 4? Minus 4, good. Okay, but what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Well, 4 minus 4 is 0, so those two cancel out, leaving my 2x, and 8 minus 4 is 4. Well, I still got to bring down my inequality symbol. And remember, when we do this, we know there's an imaginary little multiplication dot right there. So to get rid of a times 2, I have to divide by 2. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So these 2's cancel out, bringing down my x. And 4 divided by 2 is just 2, and I still bring down my sign. So the inequality that I'm working with after solving my equation is x is greater than 2. Now that I have that right there, I'm able to actually graph it, just like we've been doing. First thing I have to do is put numbers on a number line. I know that my 2 has to be on here somewhere. I'm just going to put him in the middle. I'm going to count down, count up, and here we go. So my 2, I have to draw a circle above him because that's my important number. Now, am I going to color him in? Good. No, I'm not going to color him in because he does not have that equals bar, and if it doesn't have an equals bar, it has to stay an open circle. Okay, so also, just like we just talked about, this is a greater than sign, and so our greater than signs always go off to the right. So draw your arrow off to the right, so you have an open circle with an arrow going off to the right. That's all we have to do. So even though these look scary because they have an inequality symbol, you've been doing this. You know how to solve a two-step equation. You know how to solve a one-step equation. You're going to solve it the exact same way. We're going to do one more practice problem, and then I'm going to let you head off on your own, okay? Here's our last problem for today. I'm going to use 2x is less than 10. Okay, so 2x is less than 10. Well, this is not a plain inequality yet. It doesn't just have the x and just the variable, so I have to solve it, just like we've been doing. Okay, draw my fence. Well, there's no need to circle my coefficient because all I have is a coefficient. Now, how do I get rid of this 2? Well, we know that there's this imaginary little multiplication dot. And so to get rid of a multiplication sign, we have to divide. And since it's 2x, we're going to divide by 2. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So these 2's cancel out. I bring down my x. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. And I just slide my symbol right on down the line. And so my inequality for this one, after I solved him out, is x is less than 5. Remember, I have to have my 5 on here somewhere, so I'm just going to fill him in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to draw my circle over the 5. Now, am I coloring him in? No, because there is no equals bar. If there's no equal bar under it, you leave him open. And we know that less than is always to the left. So I'm going to draw me an arrow going off to the left, and I am all done. Okay, so what I want you to do now is I want you to finish your last couple of practice problems, and then we'll get started on today's assignment. Have a great day.